So for the final chapter, we're going to be talking about protecting our revenue and our dollars. So there is a three-part of our revenue collection system. So first, we need to charge the guest. Second, we need to collect the revenue from the guest. And then third, we need to protect our cash assets. When we're talking about charging the guests, we want to make sure that we are charging the guests the correct amount. Okay. If we overcharge our guests, okay, then they may not see the value from what they received. And so if they don't perceive a value, well, then they're not going to come back. They may think, how many times have you gone to a restaurant and you've paid the bill and you thought, well, that really wasn't great. That really wasn't exactly what I would have paid for all of that. And then you just never go back because you don't find that value. From the restaurant's perspective, we want to make sure that we're not undercharging our guests. And so, for example, when I was at Chester's Hamburgers, okay, we would have two sides of our tickets. We had the front and we had the back. On the front side is where we wrote everything, okay? Okay, 2 drinks. So a cheeseburger, double bacon cheeseburger, order of French fries, and 2 drinks. On the back of that ticket, after the cashier would write everything and put it into the computer, they would put the receipt into the printer and it would print exactly what they charged. Now, my manager literally would have to check every single ticket during a shift to make sure that everything was on there. And so, for example, we have our cheeseburger, we have our double bacon cheeseburger, we have our French fries, and maybe the cashier only charged for 1 drink instead of 2 because they were in a hurry. They pushed the button twice. They thought they did, but the computer only registered 1 drink. Well, that would be an example of undercharging the guest. And another issue with that, one is that we're not getting the revenue for that drink. The other issue for that is that the next time the guest comes and orders this again, it's going to be a different amount if we actually charge them for both drinks, and they're going to question that. With credit cards and personal checks, we want to make sure that all the credit cards that we are accepting are valid and not stolen or not compromised numbers. And so having an updated system should allow for us to catch all of those things. And then our personal checks, if we don't have a reader for our person to validate personal checks, then which are kind of pretty expensive pieces of equipment, then we may not even accept personal checks and to prevent that from happening for us, you know, accepting a hot check or accepting a fraudulent check. Most places don't even allow personal checks any longer. We do most often accept traveler's checks, and traveler's checks are different because they are backed up by cash. So when someone purchases a traveler's check, they actually pay for the check at that time, so that check actually represents cash. When we talk about counterfeit currency, we want to make sure that we're also verifying that. And so some places have a little UV ultraviolet light. Some places have the pens that will change the ink will change black if it's a counterfeit currency. We can't go to the bank and say, I'm so sorry after the fact that I accepted this counterfeit currency. We're just out of that. And so it's really important that we are training our employees to identify those particular things. Internal threats to our revenue security, so that's basically money that's being stolen by our employees. And so there's this thing called the 10-10-80 rule. 10% of the people in this world are going to be honest no matter what. 10% of this world are going to be dishonest no matter what. And 80% of the people in the world are going to be honest if there's a chance of being caught. Okay, so if, I think I may have talked about this when we talk about our security of our inventory. And so essentially, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are showing our employees that we're validating what revenue is coming in, and we're showing how we protect that revenue. We're showing to make sure that we are not undercharging the guests, and that there's consequences that if you do undercharge or overcharge a guest. And so we want to make sure that also, if we are potentially see an issue at the bar, if drinks, we feel like we're not getting all the revenue for all the drinks that are being served, we might install cameras to see how people are ringing in their drinks or not ringing in their drinks. There's so many different things that we can do to protect that internal threat to our revenue security. So anything we can do for our on-premise cash, so having safes, depositing those things into those deposits into time lock safe. So once it's been closed, it can't be open for a certain number of hours or a certain period of time. Our cash deposits, if we do need to go to the bank, then there needs to be like a policy or a company procedure on how we are handling those cash deposits. I had a friend of mine once who owned a restaurant. He did a wedding at the restaurant, and the bride and groom paid cash for the balance and for the bar at the end of the night. And he thought, well, you know what? I'm really tired. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to worry about, I'll deposit this cash tomorrow. And then his restaurant was broken into and the cash was stolen. And so you can't get that back. So it's really tragic, but we need to have procedures in place for securing those cash deposits. The last thing when we're talking about our customer payment card information, so the payment card industry, the PCI, has very strict regulations about what you need to do in order to safeguard all that information that you gather when you swipe a customer's credit card. And so on that magnetic strip or in that chip embedded in the credit card is their personal information, their address, their phone number, their email address, everything that's associated with that credit card, as addition to the number itself, the expiration date, all of that stuff is on that information. And so we need to make sure that we are protecting all of that. And we won't go into a whole lot of details, but in your legal issues class, there will be a lot more information given about the customer payment card information and protecting all of that. Short example, when I was when I was on the board of directors for AHA, one year we used to use the swipe cards for a swipe for PayPal, where you plug it into the phone jack and then you can swipe on your phone to take payments on PayPal. Well, those things can be easily hacked. How the information is then gathered and stored on PayPal can also be accessed. And so to keep it more encrypted and more secure, we as AHA had to invest in chip readers. And so if by a certain date, if we as an organization did not invest in the chip readers and we were still using the swipe method and there was some kind of a breach, then we as an organization were held liable for that. And so we made the decision to make the investment and purchase the chip readers so that we could be more compliant of protecting our members' information as far as what's on their payment card.